Let me tell you what we keep seeing. Company spends 4 weeks on a proposal, their solution is solid, their pricing is competitive, their past performance looks relevant, and they still lose. Not because someone wrote a better narrative, but because their past performance didn't score the way they thought it would. They've included a $10 million contract, but it was spread over 8 years across multiple task orders with limited scope overlap. To them, it felt like a strong example. To the evaluator, it didn't demonstrate the same scale, complexity, or relevance as the requirement. Another offerer submitted fewer projects. Each one was tightly aligned, recent, and clearly mapped to the evaluation criteria. That's the difference. Past performance isn't just what you've done, it's how well it matches what the government is asking for and how clearly you prove it. Or a firm wins access to a vehicle, and now they're in the real game, task orders. This is where things get tight. Turnarounds are often 5 to 10 days, sometimes less, and these companies are already busy delivering on active work. So what happens? They're pulling together a response quickly, juggling operations, client delivery, and proposal development at the same time. And the proposal gets in, but it's rushed. It's not as strategic as it could be. It's not as clearly aligned to the evaluation criteria as it needs to be. Not because they lack capability, but because they didn't have the time or bandwidth to fully develop their response. We see that scenario all the time. And here's what makes it harder to fix than it looks. A lot of teams think that the answer is speed, tools, templates, or even AI to move faster. But the firms winning aren't just writing faster. They're more prepared before the solicitation ever drops. They already understand the requirement. They've aligned their past performance. They've thought through their approach. And just as importantly, they've resourced for it. Either they've built an internal proposal team that can handle tight turnarounds, or they have a partner on call who can step in when the timeline compresses. So when the deadline hits, they're not scrambling to build something from scratch. They're refining something that's already been thought through. The preparation gap is what we're talking about today. The federal government spent north of $750 billion on contracts last year. And right now, in 2026, one of the most significant shifts in how that money moves is playing out through vehicle consolidation. And for this video specifically, through Oasis Plus. Let's dive in and learn more.
All right, Sarah, welcome to the video. I want to start with the context because I think it's a lot of people are still underestimating the scale of what's happening, right? Legacy Oasis, the original vehicle, generated $48 billion and over 3,200 task orders since 2015, so quite large, right? The Army alone drove 30 billion through it. That vehicle is now done, right? And work is migrating over to Oasis Plus. So how significant is this shift in your view?
It's really one of the most significant structural changes in federal procurement professional services, like contracting, that we've seen in a number of years. And we're seeing it directly in the work coming through our door. So Oasis Plus isn't just the successor to the legacy Oasis. It's absorbing 3 vehicles all at once. So it's Oasis, BMO, AM, and HCATS, which together represent a substantial base of historical spending. All of that task order activity is moving onto one platform, and it's been moving onto one platform for like 2 years now, right? And there's clear policy direction behind it. Agencies are being pushed to consolidate under government-wide vehicles rather than stand up new contracts all by themselves. And Oasis Plus is now like open again for like onboarding. So if you didn't get on when it kind of opened up about, a year and a half ago or so, then you can get on now. And it's a good idea because they're putting more and more on it, right? We've seen that the line is going like this, not like this, right? It's not flat. Like they're putting more and more on it. So
Gotcha. Right. And this isn't just for GSA housekeeping, right? There's a real strategic driver behind what they're doing.
Right. So the GSA published the OneGov strategy, which is an acquisition reform. It's the direction, the commercial first push. Basically, they're all pointing the same way. More work through established vehicles, fewer through agency-specific IDIQs at recompete. So Oasis Plus is absorbing what used to be more fragmented, and that consolidation is real and it's accelerating. That said, and this matters for the audience that we're talking to, right? Oasis Plus isn't the only picture. There's Alliant 3, that's the IT backbone. Polaris is driving significant small IT business work. Soup handles product-heavy, speed-driven requirements. Seaport is the Navy's primary service channel, right? There's lots of things. So strong contractors aren't betting on one vehicle. They're positioned where their work is most likely to land for their capabilities. And Oasis Plus is a major growing piece of that ecosystem right now. And it's one that is open right now for you to join if you qualify.
No, 100%. And just a quick side note too, if you guys are, if anybody watching is looking for help on getting on any of those vehicles, we're here to help. You can message Sarah online. Put a form on the website and we'll be happy to reach out and kind of see what we can do for you, right? Okay, cool. So what actually changed with phase 2 of Oasis Plus, besides obviously what you just talked about?
Yeah, so they reopened all the 6 solicitations under the continuously open model, basically unrestricted, total small business, 8A, the WOSB, women owned small business, the hub zone, and the SDVOSB, or the service disabled veteran. So there's no hard deadline now. You submit when your submission is ready and it's strong. At the same time, GSA has expanded the program from 8 domains to 13 domains. So they added business administration, financial services, human capital, marketing and public relations, and social services. And those are areas that the GSA identified as having substantial federal spending that was moving through fragmented and less efficient routes. So 13 domains, 150 functional areas, no contract ceiling, no cap on awards.
So for a firm that isn't on a vehicle today, right? What are they actually missing in practical terms?
Yeah. Well, every task order that flows through, like GSA eBuy, right, which is the mandatory solicitation portal for Oasis Plus, the contractors on that vehicle get automated notifications when solicitations match their pool and their domain, and they can search inside GSA eBuy, right? If you're not on it, you're not competing for these opportunities. You don't even get to see them. You don't even know they come out, right? You can't get into GSA eBuy. So you're not in the room where a growing portion of professional services work is being awarded. You're not even there.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right. And the firms that got on in phase 1 have a compounding advantage, obviously, at this point, right?
Yeah, it's significant, right? They're competing for task orders right now while you're considering whether or not you should get on. So they're building agency relationships. They're establishing price line bases. They're generating CPARs that strengthen their future bids. Continuous on-ramping doesn't mean zero urgency. It means that the competition has already started and it's not going to stop. So every month that you wait is pipeline that you're leaving for firms that moved earlier than you did. But you also don't want to try it and be, you have to be ready. So, it's a balancing act, but the sooner the better.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, if any of this seems a little daunting, or the team is already stretched in writing contracts or busy doing whatever they're doing, right? As most businesses are, obviously we're here to help. So feel free to reach out. And yeah, if you guys haven't subscribed to the video, please hit that subscribe button so we can give you guys more valuable information. So Sarah, now that we've talked about, the actual Oasis machine, let's dive deeper into the actual Oasis Plus scorecard, right? Which is super, super important, right? Because this is where we see companies get surprised. Oasis Plus is a scorecard driven. You're not writing a narrative and hoping the evaluator responds to it, right? Walk me through how the scoring actually works in practice.
Yeah, so the scoring starts as self-assessed. You get to fill out this qualification matrix for each domain and pool that you're pursuing. The primary scoring areas are qualifying projects, past performance rating, federal prime experience, contractor business systems, clearances, and certifications. So you're claiming points based on documented, verifiable evidence, right? So we build and review the scorecards like this all the time for people. And the pattern that we see is that companies are consistently sort of overestimating where they stand until someone is actually running the math, and we run an initial math to say whether or not you should even bother, right? Are you close? And then you really have to have that verifiable evidence. So pulling together what works as that verifiable evidence, gathering that, making, kind of massaging that score with those things. What can we do to raise this? What else do you have, right? Is kind of what we do.
And again, right, GSA isn't calling you to clarify that. They're just validating against the scoring model that they already have.
Exactly. If your documentation doesn't support the claimed points, then you risk disqualification. It's not a negotiation, right? It's just a score. So if you don't have the points, you don't have the points.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, for sure, right? So qualifying projects need to hit a minimum average annual value threshold, right? Which basically means $1 million for unrestricted, 500,000 for small businesses, right? That sounds clean, right? But as you said, this is where a lot of submissions actually come apart, right? Why is that?
Yeah, so that's actually the most common issue that we find when we're looking at submission, we're auditing people's submissions. A company has a $10 million contract that's been performed over 8 years, right? So they see this $10 million number and they assume that they're above that threshold, but it's an annualized value, right? So that's $1.25 million per year, right? 1.25, not $10 million. So some domains, that project will barely qualify, right? And for other domains, it simply doesn't, right? So a lot of companies think that they qualify and until we run the math with them. And that's one calculation mistake that can take a project that looks strong on paper and then make it, you just got non-qualified on the track that you're targeting. When if you had somebody like us who's an expert who can help you walk through these things, we would make sure, like 100%, that the score that we're sending in, I mean, we can't promise you're going to get all the points. We're going to pad that. We're going to make sure you have over the points that you need so that when they lose a couple here and there, that you're still going to get on, right? But if we don't think that you can get on, if your points are not there, we're going to let you know.
Yeah. And you can't run the same project through every domain and expect the same result, correct?
No, of course. Each domain has its own scoring matrix with unique qualifications. So the marketing and public relations domain, for instance, has very specific requirements in that integrated experience area that are going to differ from the ones from technical and engineering. Financial services has its own, right? Each one is going to require a separate analysis. So that's a big part of what we do before the client submits anything, is we audit every qualifying project, we calculate those annualized values, we map all the documentation, which is really where the workload is, right? Mapping all that documentation to that specific scorecard in your target domain. And then we don't let clients submit until the math works.
That's great. I mean, yeah, we're very honest about what we do. And if a client, doesn't fit, then we don't work with them, right? So what about these new 5 domains, Sarah? Is there a first mover advantage there as well?
I think there's a real one there because business administration, financial services, human capital, marketing, PR, and social services. Those are the new categories, right? There is no established incumbent base here. So for companies that are operating in those spaces that have the qualifying experience, the entry window is more open than it will be 2 years from now, right? But they're putting people on right now. There might be 3 people and a solicitation comes out. Your competition pool is low, but in a couple of years, it's going to be much bigger, right? Because more people are going to be on. So, the same standards apply. Math still has to work. Every point still needs documentation. But the sooner the better, in my opinion. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure, right? And for teaming, right? Can that fill gaps if a company doesn't have enough qualifying projects on its own?
Yeah, it sure can, if it's structured correctly, right? So a well-designed teaming arrangement can legitimately strengthen a submission. So filing certification gaps, adding qualified experience, leveraging socioeconomic statuses, but the structure has to reflect real execution roles. Superficial partnerships are going to get identified during that evaluation. So we help companies build teams based on specific scorecard gaps. And if a proposed team doesn't materially improve the score, we'll also tell the client that before they spend time building that team.
Yeah, gotcha. 100%. Love that. All right, cool. So let's zoom out a little bit and talk about the 2026 landscape, right? The FAR is being rewritten. There are significant workforce reductions across the federal government, obviously in 2025. We're still in appropriations uncertainty environment. Basically said things are moving, right? What does that all mean practically for a contractor pursuing multi-million-dollar work?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing on the ground is more variability across agencies than we've seen in a while. The FAR reform is moving a lot of prescriptive guidance into sometimes more flexible frameworks, right? Practitioner albums, buying guides. Contracting officers have a little bit more discretion. There's phased procurements. They can have oral presentations, demonstrations, although I haven't seen a whole lot of that happen, but some, which this sounds like flexibility, but in practice it means less standardization, which is they're pushing for more, but then there's less.
So what works at one agency may look very different for another. That is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, basically you cannot run the same proposal playbook across agencies the way that you necessarily could before. When you layer in smaller acquisition workforces, fewer contracting officers, fewer program managers on the government sides, you're going to get delays. There's been a lot of delayed solicitations. Evaluations are taking longer. Awards are delayed. The appropriations environment adds to that unpredictability. So here's what I tell clients. When the logjam breaks and awards start moving, they're going to move fast. So the firms who are ready with their documentation, their proposals prepped, the compliance that is in order, they're going to catch that wave, right? And everybody else is still going to be assembling their team. So I always say work early, get it done ahead of time.
Yeah, no, 100%, right? And for everyone pursuing DoD work or Department of Defense work, right? CMMC is now the real gate for what's going on over there.
Yeah, phase 1 started in late 2025, and that was self-assessments for level 1 and level 2. Phase 2, which is mandatory third-party certification for level 2 contracts, that starts in November. So that's 8 months away? Yeah. Less? No? Oh my gosh. Is it April? Anyway, the capacity for certified assessments is significantly constrained relative to the number of contractors who need them, right? So wait times are extending. If you're targeting DoD work that touches controlled unclassified information, and you haven't started your CMMC roadmap, you're going to find yourself ineligible for opportunities regardless of how strong your positioning is on your proposals and stuff, because that compliance gate is going to stop you. It won't matter what your technical capability is, and you're going to be like, but I did it, but now the third party certification people, they're booked, right? It takes some time and there's a limited number of them. So get on the calendar with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right. And you can't write your way through a missing certification in this scenario, right?
No. In 2026, the highest scoring, most compliant, lowest risk proposal wins, not the most creative one. Compliance is your entry ticket. And if you need CMMC, you don't have it, there's no writing yourself out of that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Awesome. All right. Well, let's talk about a little bit something different here, which is win rates and kind of, the pursuit discipline and kind of the bidding smart in your proposals, right? So here's a stat that I want to put on the screen here, right? Which I'll make it somewhere on the screen here. So the average RFP win rate across industries is around 45%, but that's misleading because it includes incumbents who win 60 to 90% of recompetes, right? So for new opportunities where you didn't shape the requirement and you're not the incumbent, that odds drop like significantly, right? Between like 15% in most data. So if you're bidding blind, the math is obviously going to be less kind.
Yeah, and that's, I think, why like go, no-go discipline is one of the more valuable things that we bring to a client relationship. Proposals are expensive. Even if you're not paying for outside support for a company like SAS-GPS, right? It's not a zero cost game. It is a lot of work to write a solicitation. And you're pulling subject matter experts off their billable hours. Leadership is tied up in reviews. There's compliance, there's formatting, there's coordination, right? The firms that are winning at scale pursue targeted opportunities. They prep and they have higher win rates because of that, right? So we build that filter with clients before a single page gets written.
Yeah. And the competitive field is actually thinning, right? So small business participation in the federal market has declined significantly over the past decade. Sadly, right? Nearly half the small contractors that were competing in 2010 now are bye-bye.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's really talking about that. But for the firms that stay disciplined and can execute cleanly, this is a pretty strong market now, right? The government has consistently exceeded its small business award goals. The money is there. The pool of competitors who can actually deliver and document is smaller, or it has churn. People leave, other people come in, but they don't have if you've been there for a while, you have better past performance then, right? New small businesses aren't going to be as competitive, right? You have to get into the market for a while. So if you can do the work, you can prove it credibly. The barrier to entry is a little higher, but so is that reward for clearing it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Right. And, the GAO's most recent bid protest data is interesting here because 14% sustain rate, over 50% effectiveness rate for protests that get filed, right? And for the first time, unreasonable rejection of a proposal appeared as top 3 reasons for sustained protest. What does that tell you about where the market is right now, Sarah?
Well, that tells me that evaluators are making avoidable errors, which tracks when you have a less experienced acquisition workforce moving through a larger volume of requirements, right? And it reinforces that proposal documentation quality matters on both sides. So if you're the winner, your submission is probably going to have to survive a challenge, right? And if you are the one rejected, right, then you need a submission that is clean enough so that rejection is actually unreasonable. And the compliance discipline is going to protect you either way.
Yeah, 100%. Right. All right. Well, let's talk about how we, SAS-GPS, actually fit in, right? Because I know the question most people are, obviously thinking is, what does it look like to work with us, and what does it cost to work with SAS-GPS?
Yeah, so we have a little bit of a different model than a lot of proposal writing companies. We work with a firm fixed price not to exceed estimate. So, and it's on a solicitation by solicitation basis. So we're not going to tell you that we're going to do any proposal that you bring to us for $8,500. Done, right? That's not how this is going to work. And I honestly think that you should be slightly suspicious of anybody who is working that way, right? Especially if it's less than that. Basically, you're going to send us the solicitation. We're going to do a feasibility review first, right? Can you be compliant? What is your initial probability of win, right? Just really high level. We scope then the level of the level of hours that it's going to take, and then we'll give you an estimate. This one looks like it's going to be 50 hours. This one looks like it's going to be 80 hours. This one looks going to be, but if we say 50 hours, let's just say, and nothing substantive changes on the government side, they don't issue a huge amendment that's oh, we forgot a whole volume, right? then we're going to hold to that number. So even if we said 50 hours and we spent 65, we're only going to charge you for the 50 hours. If we go over, we absorb it. So there's no surprise invoice like 3 days before your proposal is due, right? Oh yeah, by the way, we hit that 50 hours. Sorry, we're not done yet. What do you want to do? Like, well, I want to finish my proposal. Oh, now it's going to cost you several $1,000s more than you thought. Your budgets are off. That's not how we work. We treat our clients really well that way, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. And obviously we don't take a percentage of the award as well, right? Of course.
No, you keep all the revenue from your contract. To win some of these, you're going to need a low overhead, and you can't afford to like also put us in your overhead to win this, right? I mean, we're not interested in chasing you down years later for a percentage of your win. We think it's not a good business model for us, and it also it hurts people when they get in there, right? If you fail on a contract, that's far worse than never bidding the contract because you could never work in the government again, right? So if we don't think that you can win something, we're just going to say that before you spend your money on it, right? We're a high quality, and we're in high demand, right? I'm not begging out there like on the street corner for work. So honestly, like if we think this isn't a good fit for you, we'll let you know, right? I'm not here to like swindle people. I think that if I let people know, right, then they can save their money and they can come back and work with us when it can make them win. When they win, right? When a client wins, then they have more revenue to get more government work, and then they come back to us for more. And it's this beautiful ROI cycle rather than me saying like, hi, I'm going to take your $3,000 right now. Never see you again. Peace out. Right. That's just not how we do business here.
Yeah.
We're a small service disabled veteran owned company, and we get to behave the way that we want, which is really super ethical. And it's really great to work here. Okay. And that's also why clients come back. Right. So.
Absolutely. So like walk me through what the first conversation actually looks like with SAS-GPS, right? Someone's watching this. They're going to Oasis Plus and they have an opportunity, or they're on a phase 2 submission and they're thinking about it, right? What happens when they reach out?
Yeah. So we'll schedule a call. Not a long call, but on that call, we'll look at the opportunity. We'll talk about your past performance, how our services match, or we'll look at that vehicle on a high level, talk through some of your relevant experience, kind of an initial competitive check. If it's something like Oasis Plus, then we might spot some obvious strengths or gaps or math issues right away. But like a full scorecard analysis is a separate, deeper exercise, right? But it's just an opening conversation. It's not fully building the submission. It's really to give you an honest sort of practical read on whether the opportunity looks like it's worth pursuing and what happens next when you work with us, right? If there are clear gaps, we'll tell you what needs to be strengthened first. If the opportunity looks viable, we'll scope the engagement and move in from there, right? And that first assessment with us is always free, right? We estimate projects for free. So we'd rather give you like 30 minutes of our time, give you a realistic pricing structure, and then, you know what you're dealing with rather than you spending the next 60 days chasing something that was never a strong fit to begin with.
Yeah, 100%, right? And obviously like the honesty part, right? The honesty about when you're ready, when you're not ready, right? Is I think what a lot of people don't expect when they're getting on calls with us.
Yeah, it's how we build durable relationships. If you're not ready today, we'll tell you what to build. You come back in 6 months when your score actually can, get on Oasis, or when you actually have like this piece of this certification that you need or whatever, right? And by then you're not just submitting, you're submitting to win, right? We like to win. I don't know how to put that clear. We really like to win. And that's really the only kind of submission that we want to put our name on. So if you're working with us, we think you're a winner.
Yep, absolutely.
So here's what I want you to take from this conversation. Vehicle consolidation is real. A growing share of federal professional services is moving through platforms like Oasis Plus, right? And firms that aren't positioned on those vehicles aren't competing for those opportunities. There's 13 domains, there's continuous on-ramping, there's no ceiling, and firms that got there first are already building their compounding advantage over you, right? Second, the FAR is getting more flexible, which can mean that it's less predictable. The acquisition workforce is smaller, which means longer timeframes and faster surges when awards break loose. CMMC is a live eligibility gate if you do DoD work, and 68% of proposal teams, we didn't talk about this, but 68% of proposal teams are now using AI. But the firms that are actually winning are the ones that are prepared before anyone started rating, even if it was just AI, right? In 2026, the highest scoring, most compliant, lowest risk proposal is going to win. Not the most beautiful one, right? Not the most creative one. So if you want a clear, honest read on where you stand, be it Oasis Plus, be it a task order, or your next solicitation, then contact us, SAS-GPS.
Sarah, thank you so much for your time. I think this is super valuable. And again, we'll put all the links to what we talked about in the video in the description below. If anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments, subscribe to the channel. And again, we're happy that we're able to help out. And Sarah, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video.